Welcome to Film Detour, a podcast where two longtime film buddies take you down and around the back alleys and side streets of cinema.
With the occasional left-hand turn.
I'm John Napick.
And I'm Bob Mueller. So let's go. John, you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's hit it.
Hey, Bob, what's today's episode?
We're doing a little something different today. We call this Trouble Man and Other Guilty Pleasures. I have an alternate title for it, Drive-Ins Are Forever.
Kind of a summer movie theme.
Yeah, it really is. A lot of the stuff we're talking about are really drive-in fare, and they did really well in the drive-in. A lot of them are made in the 70s. I'm shocked. We're doing 70s movies. All we need, for Drive-Ins Are Forever, we need just Shirley Bassey to do the theme song, and I think we're set.
And did you say guilty pleasures?
Guilty pleasures, yes, indeed.
Yeah, it's movies we like. They may not be great movies. They may not be classics, but we like them for a certain reason.
Right. We're not gonna sit around the Thanksgiving Day table with the families and discuss these movies. They're not exactly highbrow, but there are things about them that you and I enjoy for one reason or another.
So let's go on to Trouble Man, 1972, directed by Ivan Dixon.
Ivan Dixon. He actually was a very, very respected actor. He did a lot of stage work. I remember a movie I saw a million years ago in high school called Nothing But a Man. Him and Abby Lincoln. And interestingly enough, one of the stars of this movie, he plays Big, is Julius Harris, and Julius Harris was in Nothing But a Man.
Superfly.
Ivan Dixon from Superfly.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking about Julius Harris.
No, I'm sorry.
Who do we know Ivan Dixon from? Of course. Stalag 13 in
Hogan's Heroes. Hogan.
Yeah, Ivan Dixon was one of the American soldiers in the barrack.
Right, he was the tech guy.
The radio guy and the
radio technician, yeah. I think his name was Kinchlow or something?
Yeah, Kinch.
There you go.
Yeah, he was the black character. It was a 60s show. He was the token black.
But he was good. He was definitely solid in that part, and I always enjoyed him. And I was surprised to see him in movies because I just thought, oh, he's a TV actor when I was a kid. People
of our generation know him from Hogan's Heroes, but he did go on to become a respected director.
Starting in blaxploitation stuff like Trouble Man.
Yeah, The Spook Who Sat by the Door.
Well, rather provocative title. But I think he plays this sort of Uncle Tom character trying to be undercover, and he's getting information for the CIA or something.
Yeah, he was a black CIA agent.
Right.
Somehow he uses that to start like a black guerrilla operation in Chicago.
Right.
And of course, this is the early 70s, so the FBI pulled it. They didn't let them release it because they thought it would incite guerrilla tactics. I don't know.
Wow. That part I didn't know. And I think he was the go-to guy for black artists. He directed, Bill Cosby Show and other things. So
right.
Who's the star, John?
Robert Hooks as Mr. T, the original Mr. T.
Exactly right. Long before that strange incarnation on the A-Team.
And Robert Hooks must have been the hardest working black actor since the 60s. The guy's been in so many things.
Yeah.
Hurry Sundown,
right.
Carter's Army.
Right.
He was in a lot of TV stuff. He was in Airport 77.
There you go. Airport 77. Not the first one.
Not the first one, but 77.
All right.
And then Star Trek 3.
Amazing.
And then a lot of TV stuff. Almost every 70s show he was in.
He had one hell of a career.
And of course, Trouble Man was right at the height, I would say, of the blaxploitation genre.
The thing I really love about it, and the thing you can't not love about it, is the soundtrack, and especially, it's got to have one of the coolest theme songs by Marvin Gaye you could ever want to hear.
Yeah, yeah.
There are three things in this world, John: taxes, death, and trouble. And I got to say, he's really cool. He does not have the kind of Richard Roundtree humor. He's just all business, and he is tough as nails.
Well, what's interesting is this movie, unlike other blaxploitation films, is really closer to like the classic Private Eye movie.
Yes, absolutely.
He's kind of a hard edge, a private detective, I'll say.
Yeah.
And what is he? He's like a fixer in the neighborhood.
Fixer, that's what I was just going to say. Exactly.
Yeah.
And he works both sides of the law. I mean, he works for the good guys, the bad guys, basically whoever's going to throw him some money. As he would probably say, don't take no mess.
Yeah. He's got like a very Raymond Chandler-esque kind of vibe to him. No nonsense.
He's a lot like Marlowe.
Exactly.
Although Marlowe has, because of Chandler, he has a lot of humor. This guy does not have a lot of humor, but he doesn't take any crap from anybody, and he's not afraid of anybody, which is amazing. Right. I mean, I don't care if it's mafia. I don't care if it's the police. He's not afraid of anybody.
And he can play pool.
Well, I love how it starts off. You got this beautiful bosomy black girl, and it's a close-up. And as you pull out, you see that she's in a pool on a little blow-up raft, and she kind of paddles back in the pool and gets to the edge of the pool. And as she's about to get out herself, we see Mr. T coming out of the house. Obviously, he's spent the night there, shall we say, and he's tying up his nice little wide fashionable tie of the 70s. And she says, so when am I going to see you again, baby? And Mr. T says, I'm going to have to think about that, girl.
Well, he's a busy guy. He gets in his car and he drives through like 70s Pacific Highway, smoggy LA. And he ends up at the pool hall where, very cool, I think, his office is in the back of the pool hall.
Right. But he holds court where, John? Mostly.
He has a little throne right next to the pool table. It looks like one of those old shoe shine chairs.
Yeah, this nice hardback wooden chair. Yeah. And you said it right. He has a throne. I love the actor who plays Jim, his right-hand man, the guy with the limp.
Yeah, he's like the classic sidekick. He's always like helping him out with. He runs the pool hall. I imagine Mr. T owns the pool hall, and Jim runs it for him.
Well, the thing is this. It's a little confusing, but he makes reference to it as Jimmy's pool hall, and the pool hall is called Billiards West. Some of my favorite scenes are in the pool hall. I mean, a lot of the movie for me is really in the pool hall, and a lot of how you see how T operates. He's kind of like Don Corleone in some ways, because people come to him not while he's playing pool. You got to stand behind the line, John, and you can't step past the line.
No, well, that's good pool etiquette. I remember when I used to go to the pool hall, my dad, and it wasn't like shady or anything, and it was like you can't stand behind the guy with the cue because you don't want him to hit you with it. You got to stand back.
Good pool etiquette, John. I like that.
They didn't have a line, and Mr. T wasn't going to kick your ass if you crossed it.
Yeah, well, Mr. T would have seriously kicked your ass. He sits there on his throne, while he's playing pool or while he's, thinking or watching people play pool and stuff. And people come up to him and, they, in essence, ask him for favors.
Yeah, somebody's brother's arrested. Can you have a word with this guy or that guy to help him get him out? Or somebody's in trouble, he's going to step in. And, of course, he gets to the pool hall, and there's a great scene with a real-life pool shark, James Texas Blood Brown. He's biting at the bit to play Mr. T, who's supposedly the best player. So this guy's going to show him up.
And Texas Blood also has, in his hand, in his own case, I mean, it reminds me of You Don't Mess Around with Jim. Got a custom-made two-piece pool cue.
And I like how Texas Blood, as he's called, is running off at the mouth. And Mr. T's like, I'd say I'd play you. I didn't say I'd talk to you. Yeah.
He's got great lines. I mean, the things that come out of his mouth, the way they scripted this, he's got great lines. I love Jim. He's T's right-hand man. Basically, at a certain point, they're going to have to close down the pool hall because there's something going on, and Mr. T wants everybody out. And people are grumbling and stuff. And T says the pool hall is closed, says Jim. And if T says the pool hall is closed, you get your ass out.
So basically the plot is these two guys, Chalky and Pete.
Right.
A black guy and a white guy who are partners in crime.
Right. Paul Winfield's the black guy, and Ralph Waite's the white guy.
And they run this kind of floating dice game. which is, you pick a room somewhere,
Right.
you run a dice game, and you make money off of the game. But somebody's been sticking up the dice game. And they want Mr. T to help find out who's doing this. Even though it's illegal, but Mr. T, as you said, plays both sides.
And Mr. T it makes no bones about his price, right?
Right.
They're kind of lowballing him, and he goes $10,000.
No negotiation.
Yeah, and they look at him like he's out of his mind. He goes, "That's it, $10,000. That's what I want out of the deal."
And of course, when the meeting's over, he's like, "Now get out. The two of you are fucking up a nice day."
Yeah, there you go. He has no respect for pretty much anybody.
Yeah.
Except himself, of course. And I don't know how he survives a day without getting somebody trying to shoot him or something, but nobody messes with him. It's really interesting to see. I just want to mention one thing.
Yeah.
So, we talked about costumes before and rather, style. And Ralph Waite, one of the few white guys in the movie, he has the most ridiculous costume that I've ever seen. He's got these pinkish orange shades. He's got this red blazer and this pink satin ascot-y scarf thing tied around his neck.
That's the white man trying to look cool outfit.
Oh, and also red and white check slacks. I mean, it doesn't get more 70s than that.
So I like those glasses, though. I have to say, I do like the pink shades or whatever the hell those are. Tinted glasses.
John, I never knew this. I think I know what to get you for your next birthday present.
Big tinted glasses. Another scene I love is this. There's a very authentic crap game.
Yeah.
Where they kind of set this whole storyline up, and it's filled with all these great old school white and black characters.
Yep.
You could see hints of this in, like, if you've watched The Sopranos, and they got the card game, and it's just really nice. It looks very authentic. It's like all different old guys, businessmen, hustlers. These are like all degenerate gamblers who get together and play craps.
It's like it's kind of like a real version of Guys and Dolls' "Luck Be a Lady Tonight" scene.
Right. So what happens is they want Mr. T to stand in during one of these dice games in case a robbery happens.
Right.
And of course, we suddenly see behind the curtain here.
Right.
And Paul Winfield and Ralph Waite, they're going to do a little switcheroo. Yeah. They're robbing their own games.
Yeah, exactly. It's really interesting to see them go through this whole process between the back room where they have somebody kidnapped. We figure out in this melee, this guy gets killed, and he's one of Big's henchmen. Right. The big mafiosa guy, the black mafiosa guy.
Right.
So they're trying to implicate Big in this whole situation, like he's the guy robbing them. And Paul Winfield, Chalky, shoots the guy in the back. And T is like, what are you out of your mind? What are you, crazy? You can't do this. That's one of Big's guys.
So this is a very interesting plot device. So they're basically, I'll say Chalky and Pete are trying to take over Big's operation. And they're going to do this by accusing him of robbing the games.
Well, what I like about it is these guys are dressed in black hoods.
Yeah.
And it's nighttime. They're dressed in black hoods. But also, over the eye holes, they have shades. Now, I'll tell you, man, if you try to walk around with a decent pair of shades at nighttime, you're gonna be tripping all over the place.
And you're gonna look pretty damn suspicious.
Yeah, I really love some of the dialogue in here. One of the henchmen says to another henchman, it's two henchmen walking to a bar. One of the henchmen says to another henchman, so how'd it go? And the guy goes, like sipping whiskey, smooth as fucking silk. And I just thought, wow, that's a great line.
There's a really interesting scene where Mr. T goes to see his friend, the police captain, Marks.
Right.
And it's in the police station. And this guy walks into the station like he fucking owns it.
Isn't that great?
He is not afraid of any of the cops
nothing.
And he talks to this guy, Captain Marks. He talks down to him in his office.
Played by Bill Smithers, who plays, he always plays some sort of a cop douchebag.
Yeah. And then there's another nice little bit where we go to Big's office. And again, the locations in this are great. Mr. Big's office is in the back of a bowling alley. Like, what a great idea.
Yeah. And Chalky and Pete also have their own little cover. They're in a big dry cleaning business. This massive dry cleaning business, and their little offices upstairs. So they have these authentic business fronts going on. So you don't know any other unsavory behaviors going on behind the scenes.
That little detail was picked up by Breaking Bad. The big drug guy, his drug making operation is under the laundry.
Well, I tell you, John, the 70s run deep. There's no doubt about it. So finally, Big, wants to have a meeting between Chalky and Pete because he wants to find out what the hell's going on. My guy got killed. Is this you guys? And the only meeting place that they feel comfortable is T's pool hall. So there's Big sitting up there on the throne, which is really a big no-no because that is T's throne. Right. But he sits down anyway, just to kind of break balls and say, okay, this is your place, but I'm going to sit down in there. And there's a really terrific scene that has a really good, intense feeling to it. And you feel this thing kind of building up. You're not sure what's going on because there's a lot of dialogue going on between T and Big. And then all of a sudden, these cops come in, but they're phony cops. And they come in, and it's like they're going to arrest everybody in the place. But instead, it's like the St. Valentine's Day massacre. They just come in and start shooting everybody in the place. Big is dead. Everybody but for Mr. T. He's the last man standing. He's left alone.
So they're trying to set him up.
They're trying to set it up like he did the murder of Big, which is ridiculous, but they're trying to set him up to be in that situation.
Yeah, you don't want to cross Mr. T, especially not in his pool hall.
Yeah, it's the worst place to even think about doing it.
That's like sacred ground there. That's like Robert Redford crossing the Indian graveyard in Jeremiah Johnson. Yes. It's like, you don't do that.
That was a big mistake for old Jeremiah, wasn't it?
But you don't go into Mr. T's pool hall and shoot people up. You don't do that.
Especially, they probably nicked the chair. There's blood all over the chair. So now that's like sticking your hand in a hornet's nest. Forget it.
Oh, really? And they probably crossed the line when they did that.
You don't want to be doing it. So we get to the end climax scene, which is a terrific scene. And the interesting thing about that is we now have two double crosses. Okay, right. The double cross of Big because they were supposed to have a sit down, powwow, and now it's a double cross because they have implicated or tried to implicate T, which is ridiculous because there's no reason for him to shoot Big.
Right.
And so they've double crossed both sets of people. So now T comes in and he's going to kick ass. He's going to finish this whole goddamn thing once and for all.
And this is at the modern LA high-rise building of Pete, who lives in the penthouse. What's funny to me about the beginning of the scene is you got Mr. T. He's running around this building like it's the headquarters of Spectre. I'm like, who's he hiding from? There's probably some old security guard at the door.
They could have used some Bond music or maybe some Mission Impossible music because it reminds me of a Bond movie. As his action, he's crouching with the gun and stuff.
Yeah, making his way around. Why don't you just go into the lobby and walk?
You're right. Who's he hiding from? Good point. And then the other thing it reminds me of is the big climax scene in Shaft. Yeah, because he's racing through to get through to that apartment building and whatnot. It also reminds me of Sidney Poitier in The Organization when they're running through the subway tunnels.
Yeah. And then he has a fight in the elevator with this guy that looks like Oddjob's brother, right? He's got Pete's got some Asian henchman kind of guy.
Yeah. Is that in the credits? Oddjob's brother.
And that's in the scene where in order that he can get up to the penthouse and he prevents the other guys, he does shut the power off on some of the elevators, which I thought was a cool touch.
That's a great idea. But, once again, this is Mr. T. Expert at everything.
Yes.
Pool, ladies, karate, espionage. He does it all. And the thing is, he doesn't even need Mr. Phelps' team. He does it himself.
Who's the TV character who fixes everything with tape and whatever string? What was that guy?
Yeah. What the hell's this stupid...
MacGyver. He's like a MacGyver. He's like the black MacGyver. He can do it all.
Yeah, but he's a lot classier than MacGyver.
Definitely. His suits are much better.
The best. So he gets chalky. The last guy standing is Ralph Waite as Pete, and that's the most intense scene, but he takes care of him as well. And then what's interesting is, this is the smart part, and Mr. T is not only tough and cool and well-dressed, he's very smart, because he snuck in earlier to the evidence room, the records room, he makes his way back there. So he steals guns, or I should say borrows. He borrows guns, so when the ballistics come back, it's not tied back to him. So when he sneaks back in, he talks to one of these secretaries who once again looks like this blaxploitation goddess in a police uniform, and she's a new secretary.
I'm sorry, the hottie policewoman.
Oh,
Let's just label her.
God
the
bless
hottie
her.
policewoman.
Get Christy Love.
There you go.
That's what she reminded me of. So anyway, so she's there, and he walks up to her and very suavely says, can you get this guy's attention for a little while? I got to do a couple things. And she looks at him, but she goes, okay, sure. So he gets there, puts the guns away, then comes back to her and says, what time are you getting off? And she goes, well, soon. He goes, how about now?
And her boss, the older white guy, looking on like,
If you're a white guy in this movie, you're done. Yeah. You don't have a chance.
Well, there's a funny scene early on where T is taking Chalky and Pete in his car, and he's like, he makes Pete sit in the back seat, and he's like, let Whitey ride in the back of the bus this trip. Whitey's got no chance in this movie.
Not a chance.
But the funny thing is, the only beautiful young black female cop in L.A. happens to be in this room.
And so he literally walks off and drives off, honest to God, into the sunset, and you got Marvin Gaye come in, but you cannot beat that for an ending.
No, the soundtrack makes the whole film.
It's great. I put it right up there with with Shaft and Superfly, but that theme song, man, boy oh boy, it kicks.
Yeah.
I would say of the blaxploitation movies, aside from the theme song, I don't think a lot of people know about this like they would for Superfly or for Shaft.
I have to say, it's not as flashy, right?
No.
Like Shaft was super flashy, and it was one of the first.
Yeah.
Superfly was very urban.
This had an independent feel too. I really liked the production values. I love the way the whole thing looked. It felt authentic, and they elevated it up for the black audiences and the white audiences who want to see it, but especially for the black audiences, because they made this guy almost like a superhero, James Bond, secret agent, fixer, godfather, who is benevolent to his kind of neighborhood.
But if you're a fan of any private eye genre or police procedural, it's what's cool I like about it, it's a very straightforward kind of private eye film. It is kind of a crossover film. You could watch this. It's not really got this cause to it or anything. It's just like a really cool crime genre film. It's almost like the Altman Long Goodbye film.
Right.
Like a nice 70s private eye film.
There are elements of blaxploitation, but they kind of kitchen sinked so many different genres of the 70s into this one character, and I think that Robert Hooks pulls it off really beautifully.
Definitely. And now we start the guilty pleasures portion of our podcast.
Oh, and there are many, but we only have so much time, John.
We only have so much time. And these are movies, some are schlocky, some are cult favorites, some are decent TV movies. It's a mixed bag. I'm going to start it off with Phantasm, which is considered a classic horror film amongst a lot of, people into the genre. It's a 1979 horror film. It's kind of like this horror and sci-fi smorgasbord.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a kitchen sink.
And it's got a very interesting look to it. It's very creepy. And I'll just basically tell you the plot. It's about these two brothers, Mike and Jody, and their weirdo, balding, guitar-playing friend who drives an ice cream truck.
Of course he does.
Who investigate this creepy funeral home in the neighborhood. And it's this huge Victorian house.
I mean, the way you're describing this, John, it almost sounds like a Scooby-Doo episode.
Exactly. And the funeral home's run by the tall man, who is played by the actor Angus Scrimm. He's an undertaker. And then, of course, there's a sexy, always bare-chested vixen with a butcher knife, and you gotta have angry monk-robed dwarves who run around.
It opens up in a classic Corman style. You got this beautiful 70s porno blonde, and she's having sex with this guy on a tombstone or a grave.
She seduces him, basically.
Yeah, and she ends up killing him. But we see this kind of flash cut back and forth between the blonde, the tall guy, the weird guy who runs it, and then we realize that he wasn't really getting it on with this 70s porno star blonde. He was actually getting it on with the Undertaker.
Talk about mind control.
Yeah, exactly.
Jesus.
Talk about a mind fuck.
I mean, the film is really interesting because it does have a great look to it. There is a production value to this. There was some money.
I want to just jump in here, and I got to give Don Coscarelli a lot of credit.
Yeah, Coscarelli.
He is the writer. He is the director. He is the producer. He is the editor, and he also shot the film. We're talking about a tour de force. It's certainly not Citizen Kane, but for him, it's a Citizen Kane production, and he does a hell of a job with it.
What's interesting about it, though, is the acting is very wooden.
Yes.
Right? The plot is totally inane, and it's so disjointed, the story, but somehow it all comes together into this kind of cultish, weird film that you're mesmerized by.
I have to say, and he, once again, I got to use the term kitchen sink, because he takes so much stuff and throws it at you. You think it's just some sort of a creepy movie with a weird guy, and yet there's a sex thing going on in the beginning, and then it just turns into this other thing. It reminded me of The Prisoner, where you had that huge white balloon that comes in and captures people if they're trying to escape, whatever, which is always scared the shit out of me as a kid. Yeah. And then you have what they describe later as the ball. It's this silver sphere, chrome sphere that goes flying through this mausoleum. And the sets are great. Yeah. Aren't the sets great, John?
The mausoleum it blows your mind because here's the thing about it.
Yeah.
You have this old-fashioned house, big Victorian house, and this kid creeps down into the basement through a window.
Of course he does.
And suddenly you're in this almost like Kubrickian modern space. That's the mausoleum. Yeah. And
I got to say, you're dead on with the Kubrickian, because it has that
It just goes on forever,
Absolutely.
Though, this mausoleum. And but you're thinking, wait a minute. It's like a mind fuck. How does this fit into a basement of an old house? You know what I mean? Like, there's a weird jump there.
It doesn't matter. Just go with it.
Yeah. So as you said, this flying metal ball, and what does it sport suddenly?
It has little blades in it, and it also has a drill bit.
Yeah.
Sure,
and
it
it attacks the one guy.
It hits
right?
the one guy. It hits him square in the head, I think, with the blades, and that cuts in, and now it stops. It drills into his head, and there's blood spurting out of it. I don't know how the hell this kid, relatively young director, was able to pull off these special effects.
Yes.
At such a low budget.
The budget was $300,000, which back in the 70s is, I guess, decent, but it looks like a full-blown studio film.
Absolutely.
In some ways. The effect of that ball flying through the air, I'm like, how did they do that? Because it looks, even by today's standards, it looks great.
It looks damn good.
And it's really scary with that thing coming down the hall.
Because you don't know what the hell it is, and you go, oh my God, what is this thing going to do? So, like you said, the guy has to, of course, break the window and go into the basement.
Well, hold on. I got to stop you there. Why would you not sneak into the basement window of a funeral parlor?
Well, especially when you know there's all kinds of weird hanky-panky going on.
Who the hell does that?
Well, I'll tell you, Tippi Hedren.
That damn Tippi. See what she started?
That's right. Yeah, he must have watched The Birds one too many times. He felt the need. I've got to thrust myself into a basement with danger. And then of course he walks up. He's got a flashlight. He walks up and he pulls the pull chain to turn the light on, and it swings and it illuminates this silhouette of this little dwarf hooded figure. It looks like a Jawa from
Yes,
Star Wars.
It was like a combination of that and those little crazy kids in the Cronenberg film.
In The Brood.
In The Brood.
And also
it's like, who are these things?
Also the dwarf at the end of Don't Look Now.
There you go.
So it has all the elements. And you go, of course there's a weird dwarf down there in the basement waiting for somebody to break through the window. Crazy.
Well, it's such a great film in that because all these bizarre little elements come together for some reason, right?
Well, there's another special effect, which is a little on the cheesy side, but considering the budget and whatnot, they pull it off beautifully. Somewhere along the line, the younger brother's running away from the tall man, and he slams this door to get away from this guy, this big kind of steel door, and he catches the tall guy's fingers in it. And somehow he's chopping away, and he chops one of the fingers off it. If you see a finger like that, what are you going to do, John?
You're not going to pick it up, are you?
Oh, of course you're going to pick it up. What are you kidding me? Especially if it's moving at the time, and it's covered in some kind of green slime blood.
Okay, number one rule, and if you're in a horror film,
all right,
never pick up a moving finger.
I'm taking notes, John.
But what's cool about that later in that scene is
he
suddenly gets to this strange white room. And again, did anybody say Kubrick? 2001, right?
Absolutely.
He's in this white room, and it's like this weird portal to another planet.
Of course it is.
Like this movie just goes in these bizarre directions.
And the audacity of this young guy, this young director to go, okay, let's just make a portal to another planet. And he pulls it off the way he does it. It's a beautiful special effect, John. It's so simple and so beautiful. He makes these two big tubes that are vibrating. They got this hum to them. And what he does is he sticks the kid's head in just enough. As he sticks it in, it's almost like a mirrored box or something, and you lose track of the kid's head. Right, so it's almost like he went through the portal, and it's such a simple effect.
Okay, and then the capper, there's a great twist at the end of the movie where the heart of the film is this relationship between these two brothers. Their parents are dead, and it's a younger boy who looks up to his older brother. But at the end of the movie, we realize this whole movie is being told in the mind of the younger boy because the older brother has been dead. And he's kind of dreaming this. It's such a great little twist. Because you're watching this movie going, okay, I like this movie, but it's so inane, the way it keeps going from this to that, sci-fi, horror. But then if you think of it as a dream...
I would say preposterous more than inane.
It's great.
So one of my choices, John, is... of Guilty Pleasures is one of my favorite Corman productions. It's Death Race 2000, directed by Paul Bartel. Not exactly my favorite director. He's directed some things of note. Eating Raoul and Lust in the Dust with Divine and Tab Hunter.
Yeah, he was more of an... I always think of him more as an actor in those kinds of films. I remember Eating Raoul getting a lot of press around when it came out, but I didn't think it was that good. I don't know.
He was definitely working it, one of his first jobs for Corman, but he was definitely working it in this one. There's a lot of action, there's sex, there's humor, and all these different components that Corman requested from his directors.
Yeah. And like a lot of Corman films, this one, there's so many people either in the cast or in the crew that have gone on to other bigger careers. It's a great cast. Obviously, the main actor, David Carradine.
He's never been one of my favorite actors, David Carradine, but I really love him in Bound for Glory. I think he's terrific in that. He's very much a David Carradine B-actor performance, but a lot of fun while he's doing it. Yeah. And you can tell he's having fun.
Obviously, there's a young Sylvester Stallone in this.
Only about 3, maybe 4 years before he rose to prominence and went off the scale with Rocky.
Yeah. And I didn't know this. The cinematographer in this was Tak Fujimoto, who went on to a really big career.
He was the main cinematographer for Demi, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He did Philadelphia and Silence of the Lambs.
Yep.
So he went on to prominence. And I have to say that as a cinematographer, he did a beautiful job because you had a lot of these chase scenes, and you really felt, as you're driving down the highway, the point of view of the car. Right. And you're feeling all this rushing through, and there were a lot of crash 'em up scenes that are pretty hairy, that are really well coordinated.
Yeah. So a very interesting plot. It's a precursor to, I would say, like Road Warrior in a sense, right? Or Mad Max even. The original Mad Max, where it's in the future, in the world. There was a world crash or government crash, and there's this crazy race where you get points by running over people.
Women get 10 points. Teenagers, they get 40 points, but they're better. Toddlers, they get a whopping 70 points, and the elderly of any sex, they get 100 points.
Which is weird, because you would think the younger you go, you get more points. But why elderly? They jump for the elderly. That's interesting.
Nobody knows for sure, John. These are the rules. This is just how it works.
You just can't fight the rules in the future.
You can't fight the rules. This also reminds me of Rollerball in a lot of ways. Like you said, the ultra-futuristic thing and the violent acts that they have to go through there's just never enough for the audience. Just give me more.
Well, what's great about it, like Rollerball, is I love watching films from the past that try and envision the future, but they're using costume and elements from that time. Like in Rollerball, they're using football helmets. You know what I mean? Like, and in this, they have this all the costumes have this mishmash of things which they project as the future, which is cool. I like seeing it. The only one who was really successful at that, and it holds up, is 2001, I think. Yeah, but the fun part of this film is the fact that it's this mishmash of things, and the sets and the cars are all out there,
But the cars are great. You got this one that's got horns coming out of it, Calamity Jane's car, and then you got Frankenstein has this sort of a lizardy, dragony feel to it, these gnarled teeth, and you got Sylvester Stallone's, which is really fun too. He's got 2 machine guns, and he's got this huge like a dagger or something, a huge knife. Right coming at you. So when he kills you, he probably stabs you to death or something before the car actually gets to you.
But first of all, Frankenstein's costume, he's got this like S&M kind of mask on, right?
Yes.
And this Darth Vader-like helmet.
Exactly. And the cape. You got to have the cape.
You got to have the cape. And then the car is like a kind of like a lizard dragon kind of thing.
Yeah, kind of like a lizard dragon with these really gnarly teeth in front. The car designs, they had so much fun doing them. They did a beautiful job. And then they really get smashed up too, man, because they're like banging into stuff left and right. It's like a demolition derby. To a large degree, that's what this transcontinental race is all about.
But what's also fun is the characters, as you said, they're different. Like one's Western, Stallone is Machine Gun. Machine Gun Joe, he's in like a gangsterish costume, including his helmet. His helmet has the same stripes as his lapels. And his girlfriend has like a fur helmet with the fur coat.
I love his girlfriend.
It's like it's perfect. Like, where did they come up with this? It's hilarious.
It's great. And it also, here's another movie it reminds me of, Idiocracy.
True. Right.
Because it's all about this beat it up, crash it up, professional wrestling aspect to entertainment.
Yeah.
And look at the world we live in now. And in addition to this, it also reminds me of video games like Grand Theft Auto that kids are playing now.
Exactly. Yeah. Because the idea of that game is to just create mayhem as you drive around.
Mayhem and kill people. Yeah. Kill people. I love the host. He's kind of the roving reporter.
Yeah.
His name is Junior Bruce. He's got nothing but teeth in his smile the whole time. Yeah, when people get killed or whatever, he goes, "Oh, that was a great shot. Oh, what a great hit." And one of my favorite, and this is where you really show the parody aspect of it and the comedy aspect, is where here's an opportunity. He's Frankenstein, David Carradine's character, is going to be driving past this hospital.
Yeah.
And they have euthanasia day for the old people, And the nurses are bringing all the people out, and they're just kind of standing there with this placid face on, in their wheelchairs, putting them directly in the path of Frankenstein, right in the middle of the road. And Frankenstein, being the kind of guy he is, doesn't like that. It's not, just doesn't have his integrity. So he veers off the road fast and runs over the doctors and nurses instead, who are standing right in front of the hospital.
Hey, in the future, when there's too many of us, we got to have Euthanasia Day.
You bet.
And there's I love the New York stadium scene. And there's that beautiful, it's a fake painting, obviously.
It's a matte painting, sure.
But it's got like a combination of like Jetsons buildings. But you see the Empire State Building back there. But like, it's funny how like, I love how people envision the future. The year 2000, by the way.
But the thing is, not only did they do the matte painting, I think they only used it twice for a couple of wide shots. But in the second matte painting, they have this little, it looks like some sort of a train going through a tube or something, and it's making its way across the screen just enough to say, hey, not a matte painting, look at the set we did. So they spent a couple of dollars on that, but it's really effective and really fun.
They couldn't have done anything
really
without
fun.
The crowd, which are just like dots in the painting who don't move.
And in classic Corman form, in the middle of this race, they stop it dead cold, and everybody gets a rub down. So we're seeing naked people, men and women. The women get a little titillation.
That's
you see,
hilarious.
these young guys there with their behinds exposed, and Corman's classic Corman, you could only show from the waist up for the front, but you had to show from the head all the way down for the reverse shot.
Right.
And that's Corman's thing, that you have to have these little elements. Every X amount of scenes, you need an explosion, or you need to have some sort of action, and you have to have some sex mixed in there too. And Paul Bartel, delivers on that front.
I'll just say this: Siskel and Ebert did a review, and Gene Siskel, his line was, maybe the goofiest and sleaziest film I've seen in the last 5 years.
Well, he's doing exactly what Roger Corman wanted to, and he was selling tickets, and it was very effective, a very popular movie, and a lot of fun. Yeah,
and you have to say, maybe Roger Corman went on and funded some other promising filmmakers with the box office from this, because he always put his money right back into the production.
Yes, he did.
God bless him.
According to Roger, I never lost a dime.
Maybe there's a Roger Corman episode in our future.
Absolutely.
Well, that's all the time we have this week.
We'd like to thank our friend Glenn Ornowitz for his music.
And of course our listeners for tuning in.
So join us next week for another episode of
Film Detour.
If you like our show, please recommend us to your friends. Subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play, and leave a review.
Go to our website at filmdetour.libsyn.com to leave comments or email us with questions. That's filmdetour.libsyn.com. You can also visit us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
And you can also find us on YouTube.